Why DCEU should not follow MCU. Although the DC Extended Universe should not follow in the footsteps of its competitor connected universe, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Batman films should, maybe. Well, the translation of popular superheroes to the big screen in big-budget films and as part of big connected worlds, the most notable of which being the DCEU and the MCU, has helped the superhero genre have a very successful run. Let's talk more about this topic, as this is why DCEU should not follow MCU. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has been a pop culture behemoth unlike any other. However, there is one property that has the potential to challenge the MCU, the DCEU. Unfortunately, Warner Media's efforts to integrate their DC Comics films into the future MCU have been mediocre at best. Zack Snyder, in an interview with The Film Junkie, stated why he's delighted Warner Bros. Has ceased trying to copy the MCU formula. The MCU has been praised for taking a more realistic approach to its superheroes and tales, whereas the DCEU has seen a number of setbacks that have pushed Warner Bros. To reconsider its strategy. The DCEU began in 2013 with Man of Steel and the following film Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. The DCEU began in 2013 with Man of Steel, and the following film, Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, brought Superman and Batman together. Following the success of Suicide Squad and Wonder Woman, the DCEU hit a snag with Justice League, which earned mixed reviews and caused the studio to rethink its approach to its DC Comics heroes. The most significant modification was the inclusion of a multiverse, which allows it to have multiple Batmans. Ben Affleck, Robert Pattinson, and Michael Keaton, who will reprise his role as the Caped Crusader in The Flash after appearing in Tim Burton's Batman and Batman Returns. The DCEU has been continuously compared to the MCU in every way since its inception, from tone to plots to how it has handled crossovers, with most of those comparing and critiquing both universes, overlooking the fact that they are vastly different worlds. The DCEU has already made the mistake of attempting to copy the MCU model, and it is now correcting its course with films like Birds of Prey and the upcoming Batman reboot with Robert Pattinson, and it should avoid falling into the MCU copy trap. However, there is one division within the DC Films multiverse that should follow the MCU's example, and that is this universe's Batman movies. However, the Batman world shouldn't be limited to Batman and his evolution over time, as Pattinson will start as a young Bruce Wayne combating crime in Gotham in his second year, with the rest of the characters, both allies and foes, serving as supporting roles. Instead, the Batman universe in DC should be a shared one in which all the characters from the Batman books, including the villains, have a chance to shine at some time. The MCU has done so with a wide range of superheroes, from classics like Captain America and Spider-Man to more current ones like the Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's now focusing on some of its villains, most notably Loki, who will have his own show. The Batman universe is huge and diversified, with a diverse array of characters with diverse origins, talents, and aspirations, making a Gothamverse a far more fascinating and profitable notion than trying to fit the DCEU into the Marvel Cinematic Universe model. The DCEU is working on several exciting projects that don't require it to follow in the footsteps of the MCU, and the possibilities are endless with the multiverse still in its infancy. In contrast, Batman is poised to begin on a new chapter in his film history with Matt Reeves' The Batman, which has the potential to pave the way for a broader shared universe if Warner Bros. Chooses to go that route, which would be wonderful. Zack Snyder, more than any other director, is responsible for the DCEU's direction since its inception with Man of Steel and then Batman vs. Superman. The franchise's output was simply too diverse from the outset, according to the filmmaker, to be merged into one seamless universe. Warner was so eager on catching up to the MCU at first that they heavily influenced the views of its filmmakers for each DCEU picture in order to create a unified cinematic universe. Suicide Squad by David Ayer and Snyder's Justice League are two of the most notable examples of such involvement. Snyder is now relieved that Warner has learned from their mistakes and is no longer attempting to sell a single common universe. But why is the DC Cinematic Universe failing while Marvel's continues to be successful? There are numerous reasons for this, but arguably the most important is that DC believed they could construct their universe on the success of Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight trilogy. The Dark Knight trilogy is much more than a superhero film. It transcended the superhero movie genre as a whole, and Zack Snyder should have seen that. DC believed that by employing the same dark concept as The Dark Knight, they could create their own universe. We're not even talking about the cast of actors chosen by Christopher Nolan to create that masterpiece. When you compare DCEU films to MCU films, you'll notice that each MCU film has its own theme, whereas DCEU films do not. Characters that are relatable. In comparison to the MCU, the DCEU characters are less relatable in real life. DC characters are always portrayed as superheroes, rather than ordinary people. We get to view most of the Marvel characters as regular folks with whom we could even share a cab, and the actors who play these parts are able to bring their characters to life in real life, which adds to the pleasure. Robert Downey Jr. can change into Iron Man in any situation, whether it's on the red carpet or at the children's hospital. Not only him, but also the Chris Trio. Factor of time. Iron Man was the first film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU, and was released in 2008. In 2012, the film Avengers was released. 4 films were released between 2008 and 2012 to introduce us to the main characters, and each of these films also introduce us to other characters. So when the Avengers gathered in 2012, we understood exactly what was going on. When compared to DCEU, they gave us Justice League after only 3 films, and to make matters worse, the film was under 2 hours long. Seriously, DC? It's a thrown-together film with people we don't know much about, and it's under 2 hours long. Very well done. Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman were both excellent films in my opinion. The action, CGI, and music were all spectacular. After that, I believe they hurried Justice League. Steppenwolf was a dreadful villain, and the Mother Box narrative was terrible. Plus, Superman in that film was terribly, terribly terrible. The Snyder Cut didn't make much of a difference either. From there, things started to go downhill. I didn't bother watching Aquaman since I felt Wonder Woman was terrible, and I didn't bother seeing Wonder Woman 2. Shazam was fun to watch. Suicide Squad was watchable, but it was still a poor film. Suicide Squad, directed by James Gunn, was good but not outstanding. Harley Quinn's film was completely ludicrous, in a bad way. So maybe DCEU should just take a little inspiration and little lessons from the MCU, but not copy it or even try to copy it.